It appears we are live. There we go. Good morning. Good morning, folks. We have, I know, at least a couple people on. Let's let the system do its job and see how fast we get people to jump on here. If people, you all people, have notifications set, you should see me live right now, and that should tell your phone, hey, go bing, make a noise, do something cool, and rock and roll. I might make a little announcement on my phone that we are live as well. By the way, my name is Mike Seeklander. Good morning, folks. We have 30 on in 1 minute. That is so cool. Back in the day, we had a notification system on Facebook that actually worked pretty aggressively. And the second I would go live, it would be like immediately I'd have 30 or 40 or 50 or more people on. And then for whatever reason, that just didn't seem to work. And eventually we found out that for whatever reason, the notification system on Facebook, the settings had changed on people's Facebook pages. So if you're on this, or maybe you watch us later on, or maybe you watch us on a YouTube page, or maybe you watch us on something that IDPA shares, just go to your settings and make sure you have your notifications enabled for this live stream. By the way, this live stream is sponsored by a couple different companies. I'll talk about them here in a second. If you don't know who my name is or who I am, my name is Mike Seeklander, and I am your tour guide today. Of course, I am a Wilson Combat sponsored shooter. I'm going to be showing off some AR-9Gs today and talking about the PCC division in both IDPA and USPSA. If you missed the live stream last week, we talked a lot about gun setup and gear setup and why I prefer certain things. We also talked about, some speed tips and some recoil control tips. If you missed that live stream, the live stream or the video still exists on Facebook, as well as a couple other locations. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please do so. So before we get into anything at all, let's do a sound and video check. Looks like we have good video and good sound because nobody is saying, hey, Mike, I can't hear you. Wow. Good morning, John Fernando. Will Rose is on. Good morning. IDPA, of course, is in the house. John Dent. Hey, Rudy Casper. Nice. He's on. Sheila. Hello. Brian Schuler's on. Brian S. Stephanie Tucker. O'Rourke. Good morning, Marcy Libby. Man, Tony's on. Steve B's on. B. Brandon. Mr. Brandon's on. Good morning, Brandon. John Dent, outstanding. And I'm getting a thumbs up on my sound and video. So a couple things. Safety, of course, is always important. Just as you all know, every single time I do a live stream, I do a quick safety briefing. So please make sure if you're going to handle a firearm, if you're going to handle your PCC or your rifle or any kind of firearm during this live stream, it is in fact unloaded. I have two AR-9Gs, my beautiful blue one that matches my shirt. Check that out. Ooh, nice. That one is unloaded and clear, and this one actually is a little different setup than the other gun I'll show you in a second. We could talk about the shroud and why I do that as well. And then my beautiful original, I guess this is like, I'm not even sure what color this is. I'm slightly colorblind. I think this is a gunmetal gray, but if you notice the finish that Wilson Combat did on this, which is very similar to my precision holster signature line finish. I'll show you that in a second. Got kind of the stars and stripes on the side of that. Tell me that's not beautiful. I should do a pass by on the camera. Someone play some music. Maybe from the halls of Montezuma for you Marines. Anyways, that bad boy is, of course, unloaded and clear as well. I don't see anything in the chamber. So do me a huge favor, if you would, go ahead and check your firearms. Make sure they are unloaded and clear. Make sure you have no live ammunition. Make sure you have no magazines that you might grab that have live ammunition in them. So clear your area of live ammo. All safety rules apply. Muzzle direction, trigger finger, all those things still apply, even though we're just doing a dry fire live stream. If you are going to dry fire, please make sure you have a safe backstop and beyond. Don't dry fire in the direction of your kid's room. Even if they're that teenager that is irritating you, you still don't want to do that kind of stuff, right? Please be safe at all times. If you're not willing to comply, well, of course, I would have to guide you to another live stream. If you haven't done it, please do me a favor and share it. When I say share, maybe not on Facebook if you don't want to click the share button, if you don't think somebody will see it, although they will. Send someone a text, get on maybe a group forum or something on your phone if you have the ability to, and say, hey, Seeklander's live streaming. He's doing PCC round 2 today. We're talking about very difficult positions, off-balance positions. We're also going to refresh some of the stance stuff we talked about last week, drop, drive, pull, press, and I'm going to remind you, and we'll do some general Q&A. So click the share button. I'm going to have a sip of coffee, see who else is on. Hello, Rob from Nebraska. Good morning. By the way, if you're a coin member, AWS coin member, shout out your coin number. Richard is on. Richard S is on. Good morning, Richard. Hey, John in Dallas, number 2230. Nice to see you, man. Another John. Looks like Starship Enterprise. Yeah, you're right. I agree with that, John. Jared in Montana. Man, nice. You had to file some wildlife. That would be interesting to find out what you're talking about. Probably something big and scary. Number 895. That's a pretty low coin number, right? Jean van den Berg, Aruba. Good morning, Aruba. How are you? Era Louie, good morning from Delaware. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. So we are going to easily hit 100. I would guess you're probably done sharing. So real quick, a couple things I wanted to show off. Oh, today's show sponsor. I got a couple show sponsors I got to talk about. And they're companies I work with. They're my sponsors, but they also help sponsor these shows, and they send me different things. This particular show is sponsored by Precision Holsters. So if you get kind of a close-up, these are some of my 1911 setups, right? The one in my left hand here, I guess it looks maybe right for you, has a little bit more of a 3D finish, and John, the evil designer at Precision Holster, changed the design slightly in the way that the holster actually flexes when you draw out of it. So I'm not sure if you can see how the laminate and the Kydex is set up on that one versus a little bit more of a 3D effect. Now, this is more than just appearance. This dude is actually kind of unique. In other words, he's playing with a way to make the holster release the gun. It's almost like there's no tension whatsoever when you're drawing the gun, but when you're wearing the gun around and you maybe lean forward or bump into something, the gun has some friction on it. So it's really kind of weird how he's done that. Anyways, this is my signature line. You can see the beautiful stars and stripes on it. All of my signature line from the appendix inside the waistband holster called the Ultra or the Fast holster, PHAST. They look like this, okay? So they're one of my sponsors as well. I also want to do a quick shout out to Techwell. I don't know if anybody from Techwell is watching, but someone do me a screenshot of that Techwell magwell right there. Boom, there we go. Techwell. I'm showing off the beautiful Techwell magwell on my Air 9G. And of course, as you know, my sponsor is Wilson Combat. So we're going to show you guys a little bit. For those of you that are on live fire, if you're not sure what live fire is, this is what it looks like. It's the Ultimate Firearms Training app, and it's getting better by the day. We're about to do a new release again. A little orange tab right there. And basically, live fire has all kinds of stuff. Matter of fact, Mrs. Chris is on right now. I think maybe did her first post on live fire yesterday. She was using what we call the repetitive par timer, the RPT, which looks like this. We're basically, oops, sorry, clicked the wrong button. The RPT, which looks like this, where I can set this up and I can go with a par time of 1, 2, 5. No, let's do different. 1, 2, 5, and we're going to go with 5 repetitions, and we're going to go with a 3-second reset time. And then I'm going to turn my volume up, and I'm going to start this. And eventually what happens is, if you haven't used this, you're going to start to get a visual signal. It turns red, and it'll give a audio signal. It's kind of quiet right now. I have it turned down. But the point is, you can set this up, and you can start to go through your reps. Now, I set it up for 5 reps on the RPT, right, which is really cool. But I always say, get your 50, right? So when I say get your 50, there's 5 reps. That's the 5th one. You can set it up for 50 reps, and it'll run your par time as well as your reset time. So, for example, if you have to reset and pick up magazines from the ground or whatever else, it's a really, really good dry fire tool, and it's also visual. One thing that she pointed out the other day is she can react to it visually. So if you don't hear so well, you can react to that red flashing screen. Some of you may want to do a par timer response kind of drill where you're visually reacting versus just reacting to a beep all the time. So it's pretty cool. By the way, they're going to have some pretty neat stuff coming pretty soon. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this, with a web version, which looks, it's amazing. It's incredible. as well as 3 or 4 full programs. My IDPA Mastery Program, the PCC Mastery Program, will all be on Livefire in a very soon time frame. So, hello, Kip from Florida. Good morning, Florida. Okay, so let's get into this. Last week we talked real briefly about the PCC. We talked about the setup of my PCC. I won't get into that today, but I will answer questions if you have that. We also talked about the utility of building a proper stance. Basically, to simplify your stance. I showed it in a very easy manner where when you're shooting with the rifle or PCC, if you have the ability to stand, right, and shoot a pistol like this, right? So this is my two-handed pistol grip. And the reason I can do that is because this guy is so light because of the shorter barrel and the aluminum shroud. But if you can do this, and this is how you shoot a pistol, to build my PCC or rifle stance, I'm simply going to take the gun and I'm going to drive it straight back to center line, and I'm going to grab the handguard, pretty much the same spot I have in my arm position. So if my arms are extended this length when I shoot a handgun, my arm basically stays the same length, and that's my front handguard position for my front hand, right? So it's kind of unique. Now, am I saying that it's necessarily wrong for those that like to hyperextend even farther and really rotate the elbow down? No, I'm not saying it's wrong, but for me, that's a very hard position to lock my arm into, and it's not as strong to move the gun, right? I'm also telling you that the closer you get to the mag well, the less torque you're going to be able to apply to your gun when you're moving left or right. So this compressed position where you're back on the mag well or whatever else is probably not a good position to shoot from. As a matter of fact, if you look at the top 3 gunners or really good PCC shooters, almost none of them are shooting from this kind of position. They're almost all shooting from an extended position with that lead arm, where for me, I have a slight bend. Some of them are a little farther. Some of them probably a little bit more compressed. You're going to have to play with that a little bit. Set a couple targets up and maybe place them, 10 or 15 yards away and set them 5 yards apart, right? And experiment a little bit on a timer with your arm position where you're firing a shot, boom, you're driving the gun left and fire a shot, you're driving the gun back and forth, left and right. And then take your arm and change position, and then drive it left and right and change position, drive it left and right, and see which allows you to drive the gun. Because when I'm driving the PCC, I'm using this lead arm, right, to take it. I'm either pulling it in this direction or I'm pushing it in that direction. Now, granted, I'm also utilizing my lower body to develop that positional torque. So my lower body, if you look at my feet right now, let me give you a little bit better demonstration. If my shoulders are this width, my feet are outside of my shoulders. Now, a lot of folks try to talk about foot position and where should your feet be. Well, your feet are going to be in a position that's set up by what you're doing or what you're about to do. So, for example, if I'm leaning and shooting around a barricade, and I have a barricade we'll set up here in a second, to the right, my right foot is forward because I'm putting the weight on my right foot, right? So if I'm leaning to the right, my right foot is forward. If I'm leaning to the left, then my left foot is forward. Or if I switch shoulders and had to shoot off my left shoulder, of course, my left foot is forward because I'm leaning my body weight this direction, right? If I had the left foot back and I lean this direction, I would fall off balance, right? So all of your lower body positioning should be athletic. I mean, that's a word we use in the Bigger Circle series that I did with Mr. Rob Latham. Athletic means that you have good balance and you have good stability. And your balance and your stability and mobility, your good mobility and stability should never be compromised. If you're not stable, you can't really be athletic. If you're not mobile and you're not able to move, well, I would say you're probably not athletic. So your feet are always going to be set up for what you're doing next. So if I'm coming into a right position, aggressively leaning to the right to shoot a couple targets, and then have to exit from that position, my right foot will probably be forward and on that individual fault line, and the same thing with my left position as well. Okay. Hey, by the way, we got 53 people on this morning, which is good. Man, but we had like 100 last week, 108 or 112. So come on, folks. Click that share button. Eric, is it Eric? Chazwinski from Poland. Good morning, Poland. Man, I don't know if we've had many people from Poland on. That's pretty darn awesome. Love it. Trevor asks, love that sign. Good idea. Did you make it up? Oh, you're talking about that sign right there. That sign was actually made up, and we sold those and had those in our web store on the American Warrior Society web store. If you go to AmericanWarriorSociety.com and click on shop, you can find a similar sign or that sign in the store itself. I think we still have them online in the store. It's kind of cool. It was an idea that a guy that helps build some of our t-shirts and products came up with, and I love it. So everywhere I go, I hang that back up on my wall. So Las Vegas. Is it Las Vegas, Chris, or Las Vegas? You spelled it Las Vegas. But anyways, good morning. Good morning. Hey, Will Parker. Hey, how are you, man? Nice to see you. Eric Mejia. Good morning, sir. How are you? Hope everything is good out there. Hope you're safe on the job, man. Doing your thing. All right, folks. So let the folks know we're on. Click that share button if you haven't done it. If you're just joining it, my name is Mike Seeklander. We're talking about weird positions. So one more thing that I want to do real briefly. I want to talk and remind you about the drop, drive, pull, press. And then I'm going to use this barricade. I want to talk a little bit about how you decide to shoot off your right or your left shoulder, some things you should go through, the process of switching shoulders, right? And maybe an option for you if you need to shoot around the left-hand side of a wall and you're a right-handed shooter and you don't want to switch shoulders. I'm going to give you what I call the extreme rollout technique that will help you get a lot farther out and engage more targets than you think you possibly could. Of course, I need to wake up a little bit more. So a little sip of my coffee. If you're getting some coffee or tea, go ahead and grab that now, and let's get into it. I have to say, that's pretty good coffee, but it's getting kind of cold. I'm so dedicated to the live stream viewers that I let my coffee get cold. Imagine that. So let's talk about the drop, drive, pull, press. So in other words, when you're building your position with your PCC, to build a good stance or structure around the gun, I want you, to start with your feet. As we talked about a second ago, your feet are going to be more than shoulder width, right? And I'm going to turn sideways slightly because it's important that you understand the relationship. Let me give you a little bit more down camera angle here. The relationship of my upper and lower body. So when I'm actually shooting, if you notice, my upper body is slightly forward. I'm not shooting from an upright position like this, because if I'm shooting from an upright position like this, it's almost guaranteed that the gun, whether it's a handgun, right, or a rifle or PCC, is going to have basically leverage against my upper body. So every time the recoil hits my body, it's going to move my upper body. And if you think about that from a leverage perspective, if your upper body is a lever, if your upper body is at this angle and recoil is traveling this direction from either a handgun or rifle, right? Every time it hits your upper body, the more you change this angle and make this an upright angle, the more leverage or advantage the recoil has against you. In other words, if the angle of your upper body is like this, the recoil is going to have a lot more effect on your upper body than if your upper body is slightly behind the gun. This angle increases the strength of this particular lever and allows you to control recoil better with simply using body weight and not just core strength or whatever else. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't use core strength, and I'm not saying I'm not using strength, when I shoot the gun. I'm very aggressively using upper body strength. But I want you to consider having your upper body in the right position. Now, granted, my stock is pretty much centered, or as centered as it possibly can be. I can't go completely centered, right? Because I couldn't get my cheek on the cheek well, but the stock is pretty centered. And then I'm going to drop, drive, pull, press. That means I'm going to drop the elbow down. I'm going to drive the shoulder into the gun. I'm going to pull the stock into my body because I want as much pressure between the stock and my body as possible, right? Okay, and then I'm going to press my cheek down into the cheek well position. Let's talk about the cheek well position just as a reminder. Your cheek weld position is a spot where you're welding your cheek to the side of the stock. If my cheek is in the same spot on the stock, that puts my eye in the same position in relation to the optic. if my eye is in the same position in relation to the optic, I'm going to see the dot faster and be able to shoot the gun faster. So you're not going to mount the rifle with a carbine and go, okay, where exactly is my dot? My dot is not as centered as I want it in the window, or I can't find my dot. So the really key part of speed is not just taking the gun and moving it fast, but moving it to the point where I have a good cheek weld right in that position. Now, when I actually mount the PCC, I'm actually driving it away from my body. I'm wiping the safety off, and then I'm building the position by drop, drive, pull, press. But you notice when I do this, I'm literally snapping the gun up there as quickly as possible, right? And I work both from the low ready position, right, where I'm snapping it, boom, cheek weld. You probably can hear that in my face. That cheek weld position is critical. And then I'll work stock on belt. Notice how I have the muzzle aligned with the target. I'm using the camera as the target. I'm going to push the gun straight out in front of me, right? And then I'll work stock over shoulder. The stock over shoulder position is not a start position necessarily that we work from, but it's a movement position. So if I come into position and shoot a few targets and I need to run or move, I may run like this and swing the gun. So when I come into that next position, I want to have the ability to take that stock and rotate it right back into position, right? And by the way, I call that the multi-position mount drill. If you had my PCC mastery program, that's one of the main drills in the beginning of the program that allow you to that will allow you to work on that continual process of building a proper mount as quickly as you possibly can. So don't forget, drop, drive, pull, press. Let me check my comments here, make sure I don't have any questions that I'm missing. Hello from Poland again. Prezemsha. Man, I am messing your name up from Poland. I am so sorry. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Joe Wong from Hong Kong. Good morning, Joe. How are you? Hey, Pre Johnson from the Philippines. We have Poland, Hong Kong, Philippines. I love it, man. Rob Perez says, I need a coffee mug sponsor. You're right, Rob. I do, man. I absolutely do. We need to reach out to somebody and have them sponsor me. Yeah. Okay. I don't see any other comments right now. So let's talk real quickly about making some decisions. And then what I really want to do today is I want to spend the last 15 or so minutes because I don't have much more than about 45 or 50 minutes. But I want to spend the last 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes doing some Q&A, right? So you're like, hey, Mike, with the PCC, here's what I figured out, or here's what I can't figure out, or whatever else. So let me move my barricade here. Now, if I have a position or a situation, right, and I am trying to figure out if I should shoot in this position, right, with my left or my right shoulder. How do I determine this? So if this is the edge of a wall right here, and let's say the fault line travels down right to the ground, and they set the fault line up in a position where I can't get any farther than that. How do I determine, make sure I have space in here, how do I determine when I come into this position, right, if I can shoot and get to all the targets, or if before I get to this position, I should have switched shoulders? Because switching shoulders in a stage, let's say let me run the whole process. If I came over here, I'm engaging maybe, and the true position would probably be several steps that way, but let's say you just finished, boom, 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 you're shooting a bunch of targets over here, right? And then you have to switch shoulders before you set up this position. Switching shoulders is not that difficult, but at the same time, when you're running and gunning, it's not something that I want to do if I don't have to do. So the first thing I'm going to give you is an option, and you could practice this on the range. When you go to the range, you could practice at dry fire to see if you truly need to switch shoulders to engage all of those targets, right? So here's the first thing that I like to have you consider. Number one, as a reminder, if I'm going to the left, my left foot is going to be forward, right? So put your left foot forward now. Because your body weight is leaning to the left. If the left foot's forward, you're going to be off balance. The second thing I want to show you is when I get into this position, let's say I have an array of targets, and there's a target right there, and there's a target right there, and there's a target right there, and that's about as far as I can get before I run into the edge of the wall. I can't put my body in a position where I can shoot any farther targets than right there. That's my limiting factor. So to change that, I'm going to kind of change the axis of the gun itself, and I'm going to start to take this right elbow over here, and I'm going to start to rotate it up. So notice the second I rotate the gun up, and if you have the ability to do this on a wall, do it with me right now, because it's a game changer and it's an eye-opener. It's really kind of interesting because I am aiming at a spot on my wall right now. I'm leaning my body about as far as I can lean it, right? And I can't get much farther than this. Now, when I take my body and start to rotate my elbow up, now I just gained another 3 or 4 inches, And I get to the point where now I'm aiming at a target, if it were downrange, it would be another 5 to 7 yards deeper in the array. On the wall I'm aiming at, it's another 2 feet in. So I go from a position where I'm literally leaning as far as I can without falling off balance, and I'm shooting a target. The second you rotate the gun, I'm automatically able to engage a target that's another 2 or 3 feet in on that wall. So I call that the extreme rollout position, where we're engaging a target, and you just start to rotate your body, and you'd be surprised, because what we're doing is we're changing the axis of the gun and allowing you, as you roll your body, to see farther out from that position. I call it the extreme rollout. It's been in the ACSS members area for 3 years. I did a whole video on that. And when people see that and realize when they come into this position, they don't have to switch shoulders. Where previously they would have had to come to the position and then shoot off the other shoulder, which they're certainly maybe not as good at. Like right now with the other shoulder, I'm aiming at a small sticker over there on my wall, maybe a little part of a box, right? When I go to my right shoulder, however, the same foot position, when I rotate and roll, I can almost get to that same sticker. So I can almost shoot to the left for a right-handed shooter, or vice versa if you're, a lefty, as far by rolling my body and using that extreme rollout technique than I could by switching shoulders. So there's your little secret of the day. So the way to set this up is, go to your range, set a barricade up like this, right? Set a fault line on the ground, and then set a target. And then, every yard or so, set another target in. And, set those targets. And then see how many targets you can shoot until you're limited, and then start to roll out and build the position. I'm just simply taking my upper body. It does take a little bit of, upper body core strength. I saw a video of JJ Arakaza with a bar on his back, and he's doing this kind of bendy core kind of stuff where he's working on his core. Be careful with that, by the way. Be super careful with your spine. Don't be doing stupid stuff unless you have doctor or trainer's advice. But the point is, you'd be surprised at how far you can get out there, right? Now, if I find that there's a position on so let me rewind, and then we'll do a little Q&A. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up this barricade. You're going to set up a variety of targets, maybe a yard apart, and you're going to see how far in you could shoot. And then you're just going to kind of learn, okay, if I'm standing there, I can roll in, and I know I can shoot that target. So when you get onto a stage, you can do, if you're doing USPSA, you can walk in there and you can test. If you're doing IDPA, you can kind of say, okay, I know I can do that. We know, because we can't air gun, right? So I know I can engage those targets off my strong shoulder. Because if I have a preference, I think you all know this, I would like to engage them off my strong shoulder. Hey, by the way, good morning if you're just jumping on and you don't know who I am. My name is Mike Seeklander. And we're doing some PCC stuff. By the way, Jared says it's 61 degrees and raining. I don't like you at all, Jared. Although it's not stupid hot out here yet. It was stupid hot yesterday, and it's been stupid hot. We probably have a line of days coming up that are stupid hot again. And man, Andy Ireland, you're welcome, sir. I appreciate you watching. John Den has to go. John, have a great day, man. Okay, so real quickly, I've talked about how you figure out how you get much farther in terms of targets by using that extreme rollout technique, right? And for a lefty, it's the same thing, right? And so the second thing I want to talk to you about is switching shoulders. And there are multiple ways to switch shoulders. I just want to show you how I do it, and then we'll do some Q&A, and I'll get off here. So let's say I've determined on my walkthrough I can engage the last targets comfortably, right? So when I get done shooting the array over here, I'm going to have to switch shoulders, right? Now, when I do my shoulder switch practice, I do it, of course, from a depressed bolt and the finger on the trigger. The reason I want to have my finger on the trigger to start the drill, pay attention to this, please, is because I want to practice the aspect of taking my finger off the trigger. I want to make myself hardwire, or, as I say in my book, myelinate the habit of taking that finger off the trigger, right? Because if I transfer and have the finger close to the trigger, with the trigger this light, as I transfer, it could very easily be pulled, right? So I want to teach my body a method when I transfer, take the finger off the trigger. And if you can't see what I'm doing, I'm going, okay? So that's step one of your transfer. If you have a PCC or a rifle, grab it. Make sure it's unloaded, okay? Aim on your, if you're a righty, right shoulder. If you're a lefty, left shoulder, right? Okay? Okay, so when I say finger, we're going to practice two things. We're going to practice taking your finger off the trigger and touching high, like maybe you're right above where your mag release is, maybe your ejection port cover, somewhere in there, okay? At the same time, you're going to bring your lead hand down back to the mag well. Okay, so aim in, normal stance, finger. Watch my finger. Watch my trigger finger. Finger, 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 okay? Now the transfer happens afterwards. Once I actually move my body or my finger and my lead hand back to the mag well, I transfer the other shoulder and slide the other hand back into position, right? So the full transfer looks like this. Finger, transfer, build a position. In this case, finger, finger, finger. Notice my finger is up. When I say up, I want you to pay attention to this. It's up here, not down here, because this is a recipe for disaster. I want it in a position where when I push the gun across, it's very difficult for that trigger finger to go instead of the trigger, right? So you can work on your transfer. Finger, transfer. Finger, transfer. Finger, transfer. Finger, transfer. Finger, transfer. Finger, transfer. Now, some of you may say, well, Mike, what about the strong shoulder switch, but don't switch your hands? So some of the guys out there are shooting there, and they're doing stuff like this. They're going, right, and they're shooting the gun over here. Man, I tell you, I'm not going to poo-poo on that technique because I think there are some shooters that successfully use it. But for my shoulder size and my build, that's a really hard position to get into. I mean, I can do it, but it's really hard. And if you do it, I would like you to start the stage with a slightly compressed stock, right? I can compress the stock, bump, 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 and I can do that all day long, right? But it's not comfortable. For me, it's not a great recoil control position. So my choices are to use the extreme rollout, elbow up. That's my number one choice. If I have the time, my second choice is to come to position, switch shoulders, right? Once again, switch shoulders, finger, transfer, finger, transfer, finger, transfer. Okay, don't forget, switch your feet. Of course, that's the second choice. And then in the case where maybe I only have a few targets left, if I knew I was going to do it in the stage, I would compress the stock a little bit. Maybe I finish shooting, pop, 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 pop. I transfer to the other side, and I shoot, boom, boom, 2 targets left. I don't like that one. I don't like that technique. I don't like how it feels. I don't like how the gun recovers, but I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. And if you're going to do that, practice that. You got to put the time in and actually try that. Okay. Daniel, can you use the extreme rollout? Do you have to aim differently? No. Daniel, Gives you better visual. So my left foot now is in a specific position. This is as far as I can get the gun, right? You can see where my muzzle is in relation to the camera. Now I'm not going to change my lower body position at all. That's as far as I can go. The more my elbow rotates up, notice how much farther in I'm able to aim by rotating my body up. I can't move this way. I can't lean any farther because I'll be off balance. But I can rotate. I'm lowering my weight. I'm lowering my body on my left foot, and I'm rotating up. Remember, assuming this cheek weld is in one spot, as long as I have the optic and dot in the center of the field of vision, I can fire the shot. So no, I'm not aiming differently. The dot may go to a slightly different position in the window, but generally speaking, these optics are somewhat parallax free. At the distances we're shooting, that doesn't make a big difference, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's right. And Chris said you're going to have to practice that shoulder switching, and you can simply. The beauty of it is, once again, it's something you can do repetitively. Dry fire, right? Set up your par timer on live fire and rock and roll. Okay. Hello, Heather from North Carolina. How are you? Nice to see you. Will Melton, DDC for life. Good morning, Will. How are you? Nice to see you as well. Okay. Oh, good question. So Mike Smith, Mike asked about the laser option. We talked about that last week a little bit. So here's the deal. I'm not saying I'm against a laser on the PCC. I've just never put one on. I have not found many positions, that I would use a laser in the position. And I think the laser either has to start turned off, or maybe it has to start turned on. Either way, I haven't found the use for a laser on the gun in many positions. That said, I haven't done a lot of PCC competing in the last year, so maybe there are some stages out there and some opportunities to utilize a laser. I'm not against it, but I have found very few times where a laser would give me an advantage in shooting targets that I can't either shoot with the standard position, that I can't roll out and shoot with the extreme rollout we're talking about, or in some cases do a quick shoulder switch and then fire those shots with the other shoulder. I had a stage once at the Nationals that I sucked bad at on some steel targets that I should have switched to my left shoulder. I did an extensive amount of practice on my left shoulder before the match, and when I got to the stage itself, I convinced myself I need to stand my right shoulder and fire these shots. And man, I fought that position, and I was edging the edge of it was a wall, that had like a hardcover thing on it. Should have switched shoulders. I should just, been confident enough to switch shoulders and put the dot on the steel and pick the shot. That's one of those mistakes I made. But I personally have not found a use or a need for a laser in most cases. Okay. Oh boy, Trevor, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not shot a low light stage with a PCC, so I have no idea. I think I don't know if they're very common in IDPA. I've not shot a low light stage with PCC. I've done a ton of low light stuff with AR rifles where we talk, if you go to my rifle program, I talk about, weapon mounted light, 6 o'clock position. And I don't know the low light rules with PCC. I don't know if you could have a weapon mounted light full time on it. So I don't want to speak to something I don't know. Maybe Chris can comment on that rule itself. But I've never shot a low light stage with the PCC. The matches and nationals and stuff I shot, we didn't do any low light. Good. So Daniel, so even if you're aiming it sideways instead of right side up, right? So if this is your optic, right, you may be able to see it through the camera. Doesn't matter if the rifle's like this or like this or like this. The optic and the bore are basically still on it. Now there are some slight variations, right? Because right now the line of sight between the optic and the bore intersect at a certain distance. So for example, if you zero your gun for 30 yards, the initial intersection is 30 yards because the bullet comes out of the barrel and eventually gravity takes over the bullet, blah, blah, blah. So there's an initial intersection, and then maybe the bullet technically is higher than the line of sight. So when you get onto the side for extreme accurate shot, you may change that a little bit. But for PCC, which is what we're talking about today, the distance doesn't require anything different. So if I'm looking at my optic in the window right now, and I rotate the gun over to the extreme rollout, I'm still seeing that. You probably actually see the optic in the window of my scope from the glass reflection. I'm still seeing the optic the entire time. So no, it has really no virtual effect on aiming the gun as you're rotating. Just like, I don't have a handgun in here. Well, the handgun, sights are straight up and down, sights are sideways. We call this the upper body triangle relationship, right? Where the sights and the whole body and everything maintains the same position. I don't do this kind of stuff. And the same thing with the PCC. I have to maintain that cheek well, but aiming doesn't change at all. And you'll find that when you try that drill. Okay. John, man, you are all about this short stocking thing. So first of all, we don't do short stocking in PCC, competition PCC. There'd be no reason if you're using what I'm talking about. We talked about on the members Q&A. We're talking about compressing the gun into a position where you're going to shoot from a close quarter position, right? Short stocking. I don't think I've ever done that on a stage at PCC. Maybe I have, but I don't think so. Right, that's simply a position where instead of using our normal aim position, we compress the gun, and I might utilize this if I'm coming through a doorway or searching with a long gun. I may go for my normal mounted position. I may compress it as I can, get to the position where I'm opening a door, or I may compress it back here to keep the muzzle back from someone grabbing it in a doorway or hallway. And that's simply a matter of compressing. And I have a lot of folks practice, some of the law enforcement guys, practice retracting, boom, pop, 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 shooting, mounting, shooting, retracting, shooting, mounting, and shooting. So in those different positions, okay? Paul, you're right. This is a very cool looking PCC. Yeah. Okay, it looks like IDP answered that question. PCC, boy, Rudy, that's a good question. I don't know. So here's the deal. I have both these guns. This is a 14.7 welded comp legal length. This is a 8 or 9 inch barrel with an aluminum shroud, which counts as a barrel, right? It's defined as the same thing, but it has to be the same length to be on the gun. This is a lot lighter on the front end. This is a lot heavier on the front end. This barrel is, one of our thinner barrels. It's a fluted barrel as well, so it takes some weight out. I would tend to like the lighter front end as far as moving the gun. So in terms of barrel length through, if you have the ability to play with a shorter barrel, maybe with an aluminum type shroud or whatever, maybe that's a good option to play with. But I will tell you that in terms of recoil and recovery, this one shoots a little softer. The longer, heavier front end of the gun shoots a little softer. So am I gaining a lot by having a super light gun and moving the gun from target to target? Maybe, my transitions are faster. Am I losing some things in how hard the gun recoils? Maybe, maybe not. I would tend to say I probably shoot this gun faster and better than I do my other barrel. So I'm not sure if that's a great answer or definitive answer, but that's what I have for you. So, Paul, yep, we just covered that entire subject, man. So rewind the video and please watch that, because I just covered that in detail, and I broke it down in detail as well. Switching shoulders, using the extreme rollout, as well as the offside shoulder switch as well, the technique behind it. So please rewind and watch that video. So, Junadi bin something. Give me one more. I'm not sure. Okay, from Indonesia. Nice to have you, man. Yes, John. Wilson Combat has shotguns now. They've actually had shotguns for a long time. I have a beautiful blue Wilson Combat shotgun that I used to do some live streams with. It was actually a long time ago. We're talking 2 to 3 years ago. I probably need to, right? So, all right. So let's see what else has questions. Okay, Joey Malam. What size projectile? So right now, all of the competition ammo I'm shooting is the 135. It's a truncated cone type bullet that Wilson Combat loads. It's a very, very, very accurate bullet. It's 135 grain, so it works well in my production type guns or carry optics, handguns, as well as PCC. So I'm using a 135 grain bullet. I know some of the guys and gals out there are shooting even a heavier bullet, which is very, very soft in the gun. For me, if our ammo got much softer, it wouldn't give me the recoil impulse that I want. It shoots so clean and so accurately. So I'm using a 135 grain bullet right now. By the way, I didn't say it earlier, but someone asked in the last one, in terms of that bullet, where do I zero? Typically about 30 yards. So 30 yards is probably a pretty good PCC zero. But that's not exactly a science. Play with that. Play with your optic height and mount. Play with your bullet weight, and then shoot. If you zero for 30 yards, make sure you go back to 50 and 60 and 70 yards and shoot a few shots, because you may have a stage. We had a stage at the Nationals that was almost 70 yards once a couple of years ago. And then shoot closer as well and see where your gun shoots at 7, 10 yards, 5 yards, and stuff like that. So, okay, folks. All right. I don't see any other relevant questions. I hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. We talked about PCC in terms of some of the basics. I reminded you of the drop, drive, pull, press and what that meant. And then I showed you on the barricade how you decide whether or not you're going to switch shoulders. And I also taught you the extreme rollout technique, which I think is a really, really important technique if you're trying to shoot an array of targets and you don't want to switch shoulders, because for the record, if I can avoid switching shoulders, I certainly will. I want to shoot the gun off my strong shoulder. I'm better on my strong shoulder. So if I can avoid switching shoulders, I probably will. So showed you that. We also talked about the shoulder switching technique. I want to talk to you and remind you of the critical importance of practicing by starting with your finger on the trigger, so you can teach yourself the skill of taking your finger off the trigger, right? Watch my trigger finger. And for a safety aspect, I can't tell you how important that is. We've got to get that trigger finger in a position where there's no way we could wipe it into the trigger guard and accidentally touch that trigger. So that's going to be a bad thing. So make sure when you're practicing your shoulder switching, you're doing it in a very, very safe manner. Speaking of that, would it be wrong to turn your safety back on, especially for those of you that might have a 45-degree safety? No, it would not. If you have the ability to very, very quickly turn the safety on to switch shoulders and then wipe the safety off, or if you're a newer shooter, I may consider that. But for those of you that leave the safety off when you switch shoulders, work a bunch on that trigger finger position. So, Portland, Tennessee, Greg Knox, thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Chris, you're welcome. Eric, thank you for watching. I appreciate it as well. Jason, how much does my PCC weigh? That's a great question. I don't know. I wish I could tell you that. I don't know. And I would hate to guess. You could probably look up the weight of our AR-9G with the 14.7 barrel on WilsonCombat.com. And then, I'm gonna say this has got to be at least 10 ounces lighter, maybe, on the front end of the gun because of the aluminum shroud. But I don't know. I haven't actually weighed this gun, so I don't think we have a weight limit in our sport anymore, or not for this at least. So I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Maybe I'll weigh it and get back next week on that question. So, all right, folks, that's all I have as far as questions. Hopefully, you picked a couple things up. Thank you for joining me live. Next week's live stream will probably be a no-go because I'm in the middle of something on my schedule. But I will make sure to post the next live streams coming up. Not sure. Maybe we'll continue with some PCC reloading or manipulation. I'm not really sure. Or maybe a switch into, maybe we'll go back to the defensive rifle cycle. We haven't done defensive rifle or defensive rifle close quarter position or low light stuff. So if that's something you're interested in, ping me, send me a message. Send us a message and let me know, and maybe we'll do that. So anyways, we'll see what happens. So folks, thank you so much. Stay safe. Practice those drills. You don't get skill without doing repetitions of drills. So make sure you practice that stuff. Be safe. And until then, train harder.